Welcome to the video. Okay, so just a quick update, nothing serious, nothing earth-shattering here. Since I've been quite busy lately, I can't just keep apologizing for not making videos, so I thought that today I just sit down and while this cup of tea lasts, I'll just make a video. Because streaming is something that requires a lot of coordination, and this one is just in the middle of the day while I'm on a break, nothing fancy. So, right. Now, instead of talking about how I don't have time to make videos, I'll just talk about language stuff, because that's more interesting, I assume. Right, so a lot of people ask me about Hungarian, and also a lot of people ask me how I learned English. Today I'm not talking about how I learned English, but it's an interesting tale, and I think that it's very different from the way people learn Hungarian, solely because the country is smaller. Everyone wants to learn English. Everyone I meet, either they speak English or want to learn English. There are all sorts of languages around the world, but because English is used so widely, it's so popular, that's the only language you need to learn. And since a lot of you who watch me speak English as a second language, then I assume that your investment was not in vain. Now, back to Hungarian. Hungarian is structurally different than English, and I know that I mentioned it quite a lot of times throughout all the videos that I made. And as we go further and further in depth in language, it's getting exponentially harder to create something that is a whole unit. And during streaming, I keep telling people that they should ask me questions, because I really don't know any better method when it comes to learning Hungarian, because assuming that you learned the alphabet so that you can read, you can understand things, or at least pronunciation-wise, then you are aware that you need to use attachments, then that's all there is to it. English focuses on tenses, 12 of those bastards, and spelling. And also, it has a basic structure, that they come with the tenses, and that's it. There is no way around it. You can't just come up with a random expression saying I, going, have, things seen, because that doesn't make sense. And you might have the impression that in Hungarian you can come up with such things. And you are kind of right. Again, assuming that you actually did your homework, and so to speak, and you put all the necessary attachments at the end of the words. I think that is the most important thing. To remember that Hungarian is all about the attachments, almost nothing else. I have lots of stories about how people usually ignore attachments, which is understandable, Because if you come from any sort of English-like environment, you would go, you would say a pronoun, which is I, for instance, and then you say a verb, and that's it. That's all you need. In Hungarian, you never use the pronouns, only for emphasis. So you never start with én, which is I. You will use an attachment. Now, a lot of people get the idea that it's simple to connect attachments to pronouns and all sorts of stuff in English, or the other way around. Lots of people who wish to learn English or are learning English have this seemingly brilliant idea of stating that this particular form in English is the equivalent of that exact ending. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And I'm not saying it because I want it to be more cryptic. I'm saying that because I can give you, on the top of my head, a million examples, or at least two, that serve as an example of the exact opposite. And for instance, there is the attachment in Hungarian that describes something like from that thing, which is ball. Let's ignore that there is always a pair of these. So the pair of ball would be böl. Let's just talk about simple things. Ball is from that particular thing. What about roll? That would be off of that particular thing. So if you imagine if the tea itself, that is ball, comes from the liquid, comes from the tea, it's as if it was a three-dimensional thing. And if I lift this cup off of this, what is it, a saucer, then it's roll. This has a rather long name. It's csészai, but concentrate on the ending, csészai roll, because it's a flat surface. But tea, as in tea, that is tea ball, if that comes from inside. So instead of learning what the equivalent of it, I always suggest to learn the explanation and the situation, because your brain will connect it to a situation, which is way better than connecting it to something that is on paper and has the equal sign. Now, you could come to the quick conclusion that if there is roll in the physical world, if there is ball in the physical world, then that's it. So ball and roll is, roll is off, ball is from. The problem with that is quite simple. Like I said before, off the top of my head, I can give you an example, and that's about something. So if I talk about, again, the saucer, then it's, again, roll. If you're familiar with the word beszélek, which is speak. I speak, to be honest, because the ek at the end is already an attachment. You see what I did there? I'm Hungarian. I just put it there. It's so simple. Csésze-ajról beszélek, or this can come off of the saucer. Now, I'm just giving you some time to digest that. So, don't get me wrong. This video cannot give you answers on that particular, because that would be this. I would talk about 1,000 at least of these examples, or maybe 10,000, which is not very good. Because what I'm trying to talk about here is the mindset that you're supposed to have when you go off and work on stuff alone. Because of course it is possible to learn a language alone. Guidance is needed, but the fact is that loads of stuff can be done alone, which is great. So I guess that would be the one thing that I really wanted to talk about at some point. There is no equivalent between English stuff and Hungarian stuff, at least in a grammatical sense. When it comes to meaning, obviously we mean the same. Thoughts are more often than not, are very, very similar. I'm not talking about culture here, because culture is very different. I'm talking about thoughts. So when I talk about this thing, I have a similar thought in my mind. I just have two ways to express it. The English version and the Hungarian version. If I spoke other languages properly, then I would have more 3 or 4 other ways to express that same thought. And I guess that is what makes languages hard, doesn't it? It's that we try to express thought. And so my point would be that if you come across a grammar book or any sort of exercise, try to imagine a situation with that word, with that attachment, instead of trying to find an equivalent in English. And I could go as far as equivalent in your own language, because chances are that Hungarian is different from all the other languages. Hence, that in the grand scheme of things, if you imagine that famous language tree that is all around the internet, Hungarian is not on the big tree, it's next to it in a little bush, with other languages that are not really similar. Maybe about 2,000 years ago they were similar a bit, but not now. So that's it, that's all about the updates. Now, I've been trying to come up with things that I can do at least every day, or at least every other day, because streaming is obviously, and even making videos is obviously not something that I can do if I keep having my adventures alongside work and all that sort of stuff. And I wouldn't go as far as telling everyone to buy lessons from me because most of the time I'm full. I'm only one person and I have other things to do. Still, if you're interested, you can always go to my website and all that and just see whether we are compatible and whether you actually need some extra classes. However, on the Facebook page that was originally created to have some word of the day kind of things, and later on I tried to create events with some streaming, which I will try to schedule. It's just a bit complicated since I often travel on the weekend and busy during the week. But sentence of the day, that is something that I had not thought of before, and then I started it a couple of days ago. And when I say it's popular, I obviously don't mean that there are millions of people pledging their allegiance so we could conquer the world. But immediately people jump in and try to use it as an exercise. So what I usually do, I've done it like 4 times, I guess. What I aim to do is give you a sentence every single day that you can translate and that I can have questions about. So, and if you comment on that and or share it with your friends, that could be, I guess, a great or at least a good enough opportunity to learn something about Hungarian, because it's all about discovery. Every single language is all about discovering things, how they do that particular thing, and so on. That's how I learned English. I was interested. I'm sure teachers at school and whatever, but in the end, when I didn't need teachers, when I didn't need the school, when I didn't know, because I was able to speak, I still to this day I find myself being interested in the language in general. Which is, I think, great, because this is a kind of hobby that has been with me for way more than a decade now, which is strange, because I'm not that old. But you can learn languages when you can start when you're in 4th grade or something. Right. So yeah, that is where we stand at the moment. Don't forget to look up the Facebook page thing, which is facebook.com/Hungarian online. For some reason I thought it would be a good idea. I can't rename it now, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's it. That's all I can do. I hope that is interesting enough, at least for the time being. If you have any questions, just ask me your questions on Facebook. I believe that everybody can post things there, or at least send me a message. That's perfectly fine. And or comment on things and all that. I'm not much of a social person, so I have very little idea about how to create a community like that. But so far my idea is that if you talk to me, I'll talk to you. That's something. All right, I'm finishing up, and if will have any ideas in the future, I'll just share either by making a video or finally scheduling a stream. So yeah, thank you for watching, and thank you for still watching my videos and all that. That's pretty great of you. Goodbye. That's good tea.